In today's video I'm going to be painting the great heron, and this is a bird that lives, I don't know, in various places like in Canada, where it lives in the national park called the McDonald Park. I saw it in a travel video, K-Bub's Travel, and I just thought it was something that I would like to paint. And so what I'm going to do, I've got this rectangular canvas which I've covered with a mixture of burnt sienna and white and a few other colors. So I'm going to do one heron walking sort of in the water or the reeds here, and then one coming down, flying down to land in the water. So I mean, I might do more than one walking, but I'll start with one, and I'm just sketching it on with a white pencil. Probably needs a sharper tip. So they have quite a long beak and a small head. This is my one sketch so far, and it's not at all how it's going to look in the end. I've seen some photographs where the whole of the body looks blue, and it looks very pretty, but it's kind of a silvery blue. It's not just a pure blue. Clear photo of what I exactly want it to look like. Even this one, it's got kind of an S-shaped neck, but it's not this thick, I don't think. The little hump actually goes up quite high and then comes down like that. So, and then this will all be silvery wings. And then this might be water and reeds. Flying this way, yeah, I guess. And sometimes their necks seem to be all scrunched up when they're flying, and other times they're stretched out. So, and there's this little lump behind the beak, and then the eye, and then a sort of white marking there. That's the diagram I've made of the bird in flight. And from what I can see, the blue is mainly in these tail feathers, and again it's this lovely slate blue actually. And the precise length of the feathers I probably didn't get right here. I'll make them a bit longer when I paint. So what I'll do is I'll paint that in blue, and the side in blue, and then the tail feathers, part of them are in blue, part of them are white, the body's white, and these feathers are white. So I'd paint them in blue, and then in the slate blue, and then I'd make a silvery blue over them to actually shape the feathers. So I mean, here I am, I'm using this Faber Castell pencil, which is a white marker pencil, and it's nice because you can draw, and if you don't like it, you just rub it off with your finger. And so it's kind of got this hump on the back, and then a deep groove sort of into the base of the neck, and the head going quite flat, and the beak quite elongated, and then it's got this hump in the front. Now, some of the photos you don't see this. It's kind of tucked in, and some it's stretched out. So it just depends. I think it looks nice to just show there that it's unique. It's different to the eagle or to the, to a swan, because it's got this little hump. But it might be a little bit too big. I don't know. I'll have to see. I'll see how it works out when I paint it already. So I have sketched on a juvenile heron, and apparently their feathers are still brown, and their feathers on top of the head are quite black, and they kind of stick up like, you can see there how I've sketched them in sticking up from the head. And they don't have this nice long one that trails out at the back yet, and apparently their claws are not synodactyl, they are anodactyl. Three toes point forward and one points backward, and while their toes are slightly webbed at the base, they are not fused together for much of the length, which is what defines the synodactyl foot, a rare trait primarily seen in birds like kingfishers and hornbills. So I now have the colors on my palette. I have ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, and burnt sienna and white. That's what I'm going to start with. So they are waders, which means that they live in any area where there's water. They forage in shallow waters and adjacent grasslands, nesting in high trees with large communal colonies. So I'll start here, and I might make him a little larger since he is in flight, and I do want that beauty of the wings outspread and outstretched. And I think I made those a little short. I suppose he's proportionate. I think I just feel as though the heads in both of them are a little large. So, sketching from anatomical drawings and then comparing them to photographs, and not copying either of them, just using my own discretion. Like, I think this can be a little smaller. This can be like, his head. And I'm using a sort of a size 3 full bit brush, which may not be the most ideal brush for doing outlines, but it is good for doing feathers. And so what I wanted to do here was just make sure that the outline of the feathers is in dark blue, in the ultramarine blue. So I'm going to put kind of a mixture of ultramarine blue and kind of grey colour on the inside. So you've got to have the deeper colour in between. And then like here, this is now the rim of the white, and there's also another layer of blue feathers up there. So those are the birds outlined, and now with a mixture of the cobalt blue and the ultramarine blue, I'm going to just fill in the feathers and lightly, and the shapes form naturally with this brush, and I'm not going to worry about that right now. It'll just be what they are, and I'll refine them more once I add the other colour on top. So I'll just put the blue on to begin with. I elongated the legs, and of course they got a bit thicker than they needed to be, but that I'll just paint into the background. And so the same on this side. And he's already halfway there. So I'll add the blue in everywhere because I do want to cover that brown in the background. Got a little white patch on her head there, but the rest seems to be all blue or blue-grey. I've seen photos of very, very blue, almost this colour herons, but I'm not sure, if how much of that is true and how much of it is just the light that the bird was taken in. So now I'm going to add the outline of the water. It's going to be like that here and around there. And so I'll mix a bit of the blue and the ultramarine colour together. And of course the sky is also going to be blue, but the sky is going to be a bit of a paler blue. And there'll be some reeds around the edge here to show that it is a lake or a marsh. Probably would be easier with a bigger brush. I added a bit more of some burnt sienna and a mixture of the blues to this water background, as it was definitely not going to work as a marshland or even as a lake. Just a little bit too blue. So now it's a bit more believable, but I think I can still add some more. That's better. I think I need to get a new brush. This one is just too scratchy. And I extended the water a bit more. And so I think that's going to be a good area for water coverage. I mean, heron is a bird that I've never painted before, and there's similarities with all birds. I always feel as though whatever painting I'm doing, I'm not going to be doing replicas ad infinitum, so it might be my only time that I ever paint a blue heron, unless someone else asks me to paint one. So I must get it right. Animals, birds, wildlife should be anatomically correct, but I don't want them to be just totally like a photograph, because then you might as well just have a photograph. So I need a little bit of artistic license in them, so as to create that something special without losing the anatomical correctness. It seems that there are as many varieties of blue heron as there are of colour blue, and some of them, the head is kind of a greyish white, and with a black bit here and there, and then the body becomes white, or it becomes a grey brown. And if you're looking at the bird from underneath, instead of this patch of white here and blue there, underneath you've got it's all blue, and then you've got a little bit of white in between these feathers. So it depends on the angle that you're looking at the bird from. Anyway, so I've decided what I'll do is I'll just make the center part this light blue for now, and then I'll add in bits of the grey feathers afterwards. That's more detail with a finer brush. And then I'll sort of do the same, or slightly dirty white in the top part of the body here. I mean these top feathers. So it was a mixture of that light blue, but with a lot more of the burnt sienna mixture in it. And in some photos you can see feathers in here, and others you can't. It just looks quite smooth. It's just little bits of colour like that in between. So I'll see how mine will turn out. But I like that colour. That's a nice colour. So if I use a smaller filbert brush, or even the same one but just from the side, I will be able to create the feathery look. See, like that, that's actually almost good enough just as it is, because there's just enough of a hint of blue and the rest looks white. And you can see the differentiation of the body there. And then afterwards I'll put on the little black trail there. I don't want to lose the shape of his head, because the size of the head really matters. It really is what gives the bird its distinct look. And then the beak. Well, some of them you see a bit of yellow, and I added another layer of the slightly dirty brown mixture on here, and that's given me that nice result. I like it. I think I need to just put another layer of blue around his head, but with the same colors on my brush, what's left over, I'm going into this bird and changing the color of the blue to something more realistic, and also making the feathery marks. So then I might not need to come back onto this one with a grey blue. I'll see. It looks like a nice blue, just the right kind of blue for the blue herring that I want. Blue heron, with some lighter streaks coming off there like that. That's great. And then the feathers, well, those do need to have slightly more distinct markings. So I'll use that to define his head. And now I'll just take the rest of this blue, add a lot of white to it, and make the sky. Again with the Faber brush, I'm just going to keep adding more white. And it's a mixture of the cobalt blue and the ultramarine blue, and the white and a bit of the burnt sienna, and some of this burnt sienna from the acrylic background may show through, and that's great as well. That's fine. So I'm completing the sky just with this long velvet brush. I'm not making clouds or anything like that. I'm just making a mixture of the blue and white so that you can see streaks of cloud in the sky, or wisps of color. It's not all one bland color. It's not all perfect, and identical in every patch. It's just a mixture. Some is lighter, some is darker. The only thing that I was perfect about was going around the head and the beak and making sure that I got the right size. For example, the beak was a bit too enlarged here. To refine it, and around the head as well, and the neck, and then coming down under the neck, putting enough of the light color so that you can see the distinction between the bird and the sky. And then again, I just use this big brush lightly like this. I don't hold it tightly like a pen or pencil like I do with some of my fine detail. I just want the sky to look soft and lovely in the background. I think for the baby now, first I'm going to take a smaller brush. So for the juvenile, I've got some burnt sienna and white mixture on my brush, and I'm going to just do him so close to the color of the canvas that I won't be able to see it. So I'll just do him in this color first, and then I'll put the lighter feathers on top of that, because he's a mixture of grey-brown. I have to do away with his eyes and everything else. Just make him like that. For the meantime, I'll know he's there. I'll have to get the background colors for here. In fact, I was planning to use a bit of... So let's see, I'm going to put this in the eye. And then I'll add the white later. And the beak. And now, just to actually make the the look of feathers. I'm just using the side of the brush. And I'll do the same on the other side. I mean, it might be better to wait for it to dry a little bit, but you can do it while it's wet on a primer. Wasn't, then I would probably wait till it was dry. I'm getting just the right shape of the feathers so that they're differentiated from each other, but not too much. I mean, those are perfect. So and I'll put some of this around the edge there. And a little on these tail feathers here, like a skirt. So let's see if I add some of this onto this bird. Will this make her more beautiful? Yeah, I think it will. Dull it down a bit, which was not what I wanted to do, but there was too much paint on my brush. So I'm going to put a little bit of brown into his head anyway. And then the beak I'll leave until afterwards. I'll just put back a little touch of by adding just some blue around him. A patch of white on his head that I wanted. There's a mixture of the burnt sienna and the white on my brush, quite a light shade. I'm going to be able to make in the feathers. I need to put a bit more white on there. So that is not completely dull. And similarly on the mother bird, just the little bits of white will add the highlights of her feathers gleaming in the sun. And now with a flat brush and almost pure burnt sienna, I'm painting the area between his legs so that I can refine his legs and just leave that grey colour for the legs, because they definitely are not, they would not be so big and so wide. They're quite thin, like flamingo legs, maybe wider at the top and then narrowing down to these little knees. So they should become visible, they should stand out from this colour, but if they don't, then I'll have to go back onto the legs with some of the silvery grey. I think it's going to work, because she's standing in the sort of sand and reeds, and so I might add some green in here as well. I mean, there will be green there, but I don't know how close. Oh, there'll be green in the front here. And I'll do the same on the chick, the juvenile. And get rid of this blue down here. That's how you do the details, at least that's how I do them. Of course, there's a myriad of ways that you can do them. Whatever is convenient for you. To see what I'm doing. For some reason his legs are not as visible. Maybe the paint is a little bit diluted here. Too much oil on the brush. But that's okay, because I mean his legs are not the focus of it. The background is just there to highlight him. And now with a bigger brush, a new size 6, really big, the biggest fill bit that there is in this pack. I'm taking the rest of the burnt sienna and adding it on. I just needed that small brush to do the detail close to the birds, because to make those little dainty legs. And so now I can use the big brush to just spread the paint out nicely, and I'll also use it for the reeds, and I might use that small brush for some of the tiny reeds, and I'll also use it for the sky, because I didn't like how the sky has the brush I was using just had been lying in the oil for too long, and I don't like the marks it was making. So I do need some brown before I put down the reeds and the grasses. Maybe I'll make a tree over there. You always need background to complete a painting. But the habitat of the blue heron can vary so widely, and even if they live near a marsh or a lake, doesn't mean they're there every minute. They can be flying, they can be walking around nearby. So now I've added some white to this brown that I've put on this burnt sienna, and from the brown I'm just going to drag this through and make a tall tree going up into the sky. And because it's in Canada, maybe it's a tall. So they nest in tall, high trees, and obviously the nest would be much higher in proportion to this size of this tree. Apparently these herons nest in oak trees, pine trees, and even birch trees, and there are birch trees in McDonald Park. Now this is a small canvas. I mean, it's long width-wise, it's 60 centimeters by 30, I think, but it's not tall enough to show the true beauty of the birch tree, but I've decided to make a birch tree because they're just pretty trees, and apparently there have been some were planted in the McDonald Park. But here I'm going to just add with a mixture of greens. I've got some emerald green, some dark green and some sap green, and I'm going to just add in some reeds around the edges here. And I'll probably come back with the fine brush to make these finer with another layer of sap green, I think. And here I've moved the edge of the water away from the bird because I preferred him to be more distinctly visible in the sky. But I'll paint some reeds around here. The paint is still wet, so it is making a bit of a mixture of the colours. It's not too bad. I guess I should probably wait a bit if I want to get the results that I really want. I'll just put down this first layer. And I also added more light to the water to reflect the lightness in the sky. Be the lower part of the birch tree, you're not going to see details of leaves, and you're not going to see the full beauty of the tree all the way to the top. But apparently the birds nest in large nests that they build big platforms on, and they're called heronries. So obviously all the mothers and their youngs and perhaps some of the fathers are all in that heronry. I'm just using the side of this folded brush to tap in the leaves, the first layer of leaves. And I also want to make some long reeds here, but again I'm going to wait for the background to dry a bit. And I took this brush and I added another layer of blue and white to the sky and just smoothed it out a bit more, although making the marks that I usually like to make just using the brush sideways, but then smoothing it out because I could see there was colour sticking up here and there. Painting hasn't dried, but I can't wait anymore, so I'm going to try and do some of the fine details with this little flat brush. And I've mixed a bit of yellow, a bit of kind of mustardy colour and orange. And I've mixed all three together to make this darker mustard colour with a little hint of orange. And I'm going to use that in the beak of the adults. And it kind of goes almost to the eyes. Let's mix it with the blue. I'll put more yellow in there. A yellow ochre. That's the colour. And I'll do the same in the other one. And then I'll see if I can add the yellow to the eyes. And then this neck needs to be a little thicker there. And I'll do all the other fine details. So there's a lot of fine detail to add in now. And I'll show you some of it. I don't know if my viewers stay to the end to watch every last bit. Like that one hasn't come out with enough colour, so I'm putting a bit more of the orange in. And apparently now the juveniles, their beaks are not really developed yet, the colours, but I'm going to put yellow in there because you can't see it in this background. I think that looks better. And he needs to have his little tail feathers a little lengthened. And then this neck needs to be a little extended here. Just a little. A little bit more grey to the feathers. Though there's so many varieties. I mean, I've seen so many different photographs now with all different colours, and so there's no one absolute colour. I've even seen photos of white. They're labelled blue herons, but they're white. I think those were the juveniles. So I'll just put a few more little tail feathers on him down here. And then, no, I need more white there. So I don't have white there. I think I'll have to leave that until that actually dries, because the white just blends in. But what I'll do is I'll add a little blue to his head. A little bit of a patch of blue. Blue-grey. And then I will add some yellow to the eyes. Maybe I should have added the black first. They have a very fine line of yellow. And you don't actually see any white. I'll just put the yellow in and add the black in when that is completely dry. And then I've decided I'm going to add some reeds, and the tree I might make into an autumn tree with some of these colours in the leaves, just to make it a bit more interesting, a little less bland. So this should come off nice and thin and flat to make the markings of the reeds, but I guess it's not dry enough yet. Well, at least it's making it look a bit more like I want it to look. But I'll probably have to really wait until it dries and then come back with more layers. I always end up doing oil paintings over several days and sometimes weeks, because when it dries, then I see things that I don't like, but I won't notice when it's wet. And even if I notice when it's wet, I can't really correct them because of the blending of the oil. So, I'll try and do what I can, because I need to get all these recordings off my phone. My phone gets blocked up with long videos, and there's no space for anything else. So I need to transfer them to my computer and clear the way for more videos. And now I will see if I can use this brush. I've added in quite a few more details here. I've added in a fish in his beak. I've added in the trail of dark feathers that comes off the head. It's actually much thinner, but I'm going to have to paint that away. And his got so thick that it's just blending into the other colours. So I should have waited until it's dry. Anyway, I'll just do that for now. And then I've added the black into the pupils, and the rest will have to wait. I've extended the tree a bit, but the colours are just getting muddy, so I will have to wait until this all dries. The painting is dry today, and now I see that I need to add, well, I added the green all around, and then I just spread it out. I didn't like the marks that I'd made for the reeds, so I just spread it out lightly everywhere, just spread it all together. But I do need to define this area around the legs, because it looks like the bird has rather large, thick legs, which it doesn't. They're very thin and stalk-like. And then I will add in the reeds and the other little bits of greenery with a thinner, finer brush. Just want to do this around the legs and get that right, get that clear. And then I need to add some very tiny leaves into the trees, tall trees which are receding. Well, they're going up into the sky, you can't see the top of them. And maybe a bit of, I need to work on the feathers on the bird that's in flight. They're not quite the way I want them. So I'm using a bit of sap green now, which is a nice green, a nice background green, which is what I want. It's a warm green. I suppose he's all right. I'll put some in between his little claws, make them more visible as well. I'm not going to do fine details of plants around the birds, not too close by, because then that obscures their beauty, and that's not the point. I want them to really be the central part of this painting. It's that your eye is drawn towards them, and the rest is just, although it's beautiful, it just needs to be in the background and not be overpowering. The birds look a lot better now. So now it helps having the paint dry. Well, it's not completely dry. It's just dry enough that I don't pick up the paint on my fingers, and when I add paint, it doesn't start blending with the paint underneath. And that's how I want it. So now I'm doing the reeds around the edge of the water, and I'll do a lot of reeds, and very fine with this fine brush, and basically just making marks like that, the thin marks, to show the reeds growing all over. So some will be thicker, some will be thinner, and sort of ground green, which just helps to show that there's a lot going on in the back. I hope you're enjoying the painting so far, and I hope it's not too slow. It's not like a fast, zippy thing. You can just zip out a painting. I mean, I think I do it pretty fast, but especially because I can, and I often do paint without a drawing, without a sketch. But even if I do a sketch, I don't torture you by making you watch me do the sketch from beginning to end. And that's kind of the difficult part for me, because I do prefer this kind of painting where I just add in parts where there's no sketch. And I mean, the initial sketch was just to get the main characters in place, and then the rest I just make up as I go along. And it's the best way, because you can see what's going to work in your painting and what's not. Because what you're putting around them will lift them up, will sort of make them more central, but you don't want it to overwhelm them. And if you were to sketch in absolutely everything from the beginning, that would be a little bit difficult. You wouldn't see your way around And so I think that those are enough reeds for now. Anyway, I'm doing this in layers so that when that dries, I might decide, whether I need more reeds or not. Those are the reeds so far, and now with some more of the cobalt blue and the ultramarine blue on my brush, I'm going back over these feathers because these have turned out a little bit shorter. I don't know, I brought the water in and then I messed up the shape. I put some ripples around in the water, and because I like to make sure my colour scheme is harmonious, the main colours are blue because that's the colour of the bird. That's my most significant colour, and then a bit of the green for the grasses. Then the tree, to complement the blue of the birds, I'm going to put in some autumn colours, some orangey, rust coloured looking leaves, and I think that will be both a nice complement and a nice contrast to all the blue in the birds, blue in the sky, blue in the water. So now we do need something else. And so again, I'm using the full bit brush. I added on a little bit of black there at the end, and I don't really like it. I mean, I wanted a little bit of darkness, but not that much. I'm adding layers because the sides of the wings have got more layers visible than than the back. And then I need to put some white up there, and then the tips will be blue. I think that side's okay, although it wouldn't hurt to do another layer. Dimension and the depth. And also I'm going to add a little sunshine around these feathers on this side. I don't think I'm going to put it into the blue. Certainly I won't be able to today because that'll make them green. But I want to add just a little around the edge, giving them a little sunny glow. Then here with a little bit of yellow and white, I'm adding some sunshine behind this bird here. I could add a little to tips of his wings, but I don't want to get too carried away because that will probably turn green if it's not completely dry. It feels dry, but I'm changing the shape of this bird. I already have made the changes. I didn't like the way his head was looking, and so now I think I've got it, and the neck a bit better, but I think I need to make this a little bit narrower, this bump. I spread on the yellow with a big brush, and I like the way it's blended into the sky. I like the way the general effect of the white and the blue mixed all around, how it's created the effect of hazy light blue and white bits of cloud without having to actually paint the cloud. And now I'm just wiping away some of this yellow in the wings. There's too much, and sort of, I don't want to have to come back, but I might have to. I'll see how this dries, but I like that part. Just not so sure about the wing part. So for now, I'm going to leave it. I've changed the colour of the bark to this more pleasing violet grey, and I'll show you how. I'm using this flat brush, so it's not going to be a completely straight line. It's kind of wavy because there are all kinds of things growing on the birch. So I'm just taking this little brush and going straight up, and you can see it's making some wavy marks here and there. They have all kinds of things, sometimes funguses, sometimes lenticels, breathing marks, sometimes just growth rings, sometimes bills. So they can be different colours. Some look like mushrooms apparently, and it's interesting if you want to read up about it. But so I'm going to just make a few marks in black, showing where these bells are growing. So now with some sap green, I'm just removing that white, just leaving a thin little sliver of light here and there, a bit of a blue light around the tree. And obviously I need to still change the background. It's a variety of different greens. All I'm going to do for this section now, and I'll come back when it's dry. I mean, I could make it a little darker. Yeah, it's working. Thick chunk of sap green I got picked up there. And it's gone all the way to the back of the brush, and I'll have to try to get rid of it there. So that covers that a bit better. Now I'm making some longer reeds with a mixture of different greens on my brush. I've got the sap green and I've got some emerald green. I'll just make some longer reeds amongst all these shorter ones. Well, I've actually got 4 greens: Iridian, ultramarine, yeah, that's one. Permanent can stick out a little bit more, and I wanted them to be really thin. Just using the side of the brush. And this is kind of marshy land in the reeds in the water. So it's actually the perfect mixture of colours there, I think. And I think it's coming off. I made a lot of changes off camera, and one of the things I changed was the trees. I really didn't like how they were looking. They were looking more like oak trees than like birch trees. So to be yellow orange for birch trees. So what I've done is I've painted this trunks in violet grey, added on all the bills and the lenticels and the ring marks, etc. And then I've added in the branches, and I've added in the branches in black, but the paint was still wet, and it still is damp, but not wet. So I'm hoping that it's not going to get too messy now with the addition of the colour. And also what I didn't like about the other trees were I used a round brush with a fine tip, and I was just dabbing it on and making little marks for the leaves. And instead this time I'm going to just do a kind of a generalized background like that, which will just represent many leaves. And I'm going to do it over the stalks as well, the branches, but I'm just afraid the black is going to mix with the colour now. And I also want to add some yellow some white to this yellow, because I'm not liking the colour right now. Well, I'm not sure I'm going to like this any better. I haven't actually tried this before on a birch tree. I normally do them different. I'm first putting down the yellow, and the blue background has a slight turquoisey tinge to it as a result of the mixture of all the colours I had underneath. And well, I've waited a whole day and I just couldn't wait any longer. So on top of that yellow, I'm going to add the orange. And I've got 2 oranges. One is a pyrrole orange, and one is this is the pyrrole orange, and this is the cadmium orange. So they will have, this has kind of more of a pinky orange. It's quite nice. And so I'll see if I add them on while it's wet, while this is wet, or wait until it's dry. But at any rate, it's going to be a nice autumny background. Or fall, as you say in America. Love a bit from each tree. I'm using a bigger filbert brush. Well, it's not the biggest, it's actually the smallest, but it's big compared to that round brush I was using. That is looking a whole lot better, and I might add the orange on now while it's still wet. I'll just give it a few seconds to settle. And I just want to show you how I changed the head of this heron, and I made his head a little bit rounder, and then I changed his neck. It was just too thin. When they're in flight, it's all kind of bunched forward, so it protrudes bigger as it forms part. This sort of joins up and forms this bulb in front, and then the sort of shoulders leading off into the wings, and that's his trail of feathers coming down there. And I made her a lot smaller. I think she was extending out there before, so I narrowed her down. I thought she was too big. I narrowed down her tail as well, so the tail ends there, whereas before it was all of that. So I need to still add some more green into the background to add variety to this background. But I like that part, and I like that part, and I like the water. I'm very happy with that bird and with his feathers. I added more layers to the feathers of white here and grey and blue to the tail feathers. And so all of that I'm very happy with. And the little juvenile, I added the little black feathers to his head, as that's apparently how they look. So now with the pyrrole orange, I'm tapping in some orange into the yellow. And most of the yellow can disappear, I don't mind that. I just wanted to give that little glow of the yellow. So I do like this, but I'll alternate between, let's see, maybe the other orange, the code orange, is darker and would be better on that tree, or on the under leaves underneath. Yeah, I just don't like the orange. I don't know why, I just don't. No, it's not for me. Those are my trees completed, and I added the fallen leaves onto the ground, so that took care of the background. And this bird is carrying his fish, and I put some fish in the water as well and just blurred all that, so that sort of continues the look of the orange into his beak, and a bit of the yellow in his tail feathers, or behind his tail feathers, a bit of sunlight, and a bit of sunlight in the reeds there. And I think now the painting is complete. I'm happy with it, but if I do add any changes, I will just take a photograph once it's dry and add that at the end. I might make some changes to the tree, but I'm not sure, because I've completely hidden all the branches and the stalks and stems, so it's a little bit different to how I intended it. But I do like the shape of the leaves, so we'll see how it dries. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you will join me again in my next video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Bye for now. I left the paint to dry up overnight, and then this morning with the dry brush I came and I made these markings in the leaves for the branches and the stalks by simply taking a dry brush, running it through the paint, moving the paint away to reveal a bit of the grey-blue underneath, and then wiping off the brush between each movement. And now with some clean blue on my brush, I'm going to actually just go in around some of these areas, and so make the bunches a lot smaller, as the leaves are really tiny at this level. And I see that the paint is still wet enough that it's just picking up a lot of the orange. Some of the orange is not as dry as other parts. So it's really going to be a little bit by little bit procedure. And I might even add some blue in the center, because these leaves are so tiny, and I obviously can't make them as tiny as they actually are. So just to create the light showing through the tiny branches.